Omae wa mo shindeiru. That's right,
Hey, that's my line. Legend of the End of a Century Savior.
Alright, so basically, for the sake of making things a bit easier for me, let me just get some stuff done. Alright, everybody, yes, we're doing this game again. Why? Because, as I promised at the end of the last time we did this game, I would only do this again if someone finally made a proper fan translation of this. And guess what? They did. Fist of the North Star.
For this, of all things, to get
I know, right? This it took this thing.
It's a fan effort, Jova, so it depends on the will of people.
So the year 1990X, the Earth was engulfed in nuclear flames. Thus, the era of violence, where the strong preyed on the weak, began. Kenshiro, the successor of the Hokuto Shinken, the divine fist of the North Star, defeats Rao, conqueror of the century's end, saving the world. However, peace did not last. In the years that followed, a powerful empire emerged, surpassing even Rao's might, led by Viceroy Jacko on behalf of the Celestial Empress, the Tentei. They oppressed the people once again. So Kenshiro returns. After defeating Basque, he reunites with Bat and Lin, joining forces with their Hokuto army to oppose the empire. On their way to the Empire's capital, Kenshiro meets Ain, the bounty hunter, before defeating Geira, the leader of the Bounty Hunters Guild. Bat frees the Harn brothers, who give their lives to save the Hokuto army from the Golden General Falco, the successor of the Gentokoken, the Imperial Fist of the Source Star. Ain teams up with Bat and capture the rebel prison area from its warden baron. Finally, after rescuing Mamiya, Kenshiro defeats Purple Light Solia, one of Jacko's generals. After defeating Shino, Jacko's son, they arrive at the gates of Jacko's castle, where Kenshiro faces Falco, who is being forced to follow Jacko's orders as he holds the Tentei prisoner. When Bat, Lin, and Ain are trapped by Jacko where the Tentei is being held, Ain sacrifices his life to free them all. Remember, Dwebs, they spoil the entire plot before the game even begins. So we've talked.
Yeah. From what I understand, this game is like a sequel to the whole anime OVA.
No, it's an adaptation of the second season. Seeing the Tentei free, Falco joins forces with Kenshiro. Together they defeat Jacko and restore peace to the nation. However, amidst the confusion, Lin is abducted by Jacko's remaining general, Taiga, who takes her to a mysterious country known as the Land of Azura,
where he will face Azura's wrath.
Of course. After hearing of Lin's abduction and learning that a wounded Falco has already departed in pursuit, Kenshiro immediately sets off after them, crossing the Sea of Death with the help of the pirate Akashashi. In the Land of Azura, a country ruled by free warlords known as Rasho, masters of the Hokuto, Ryuken North Star Lapis Lazuli Fist. That's a mouthful. Kenshiro finds Taiga dead and Falco near death. No, Falco!
That was Falco.
See, that's the thing, Dwebs. As I'm about to explain, Dwebs, who later passes away in Kenshiro's arms. Kenshiro then encounters Alf, who had Lin as his concubine. However, during the fight, Akashashi's son, Shashi, abducts Lin with the intention of taking her to Han, the third Rasho, as part of his plan to set Kenshiro against the Rasho. After meeting Leia, Shashi's former lover, Kenshiro learns of Lin's whereabouts. He confronts Han and takes Lin and Shashi to the shore to be rescued by Akashashi, although he himself must stay behind as destiny awaits him there, of course. With Kenshiro choosing to stay, Lin and Shashi also decide not to leave. Shashi betrays Lin and delivers her to the first... Man, Lin gets up with us all the fucking time. Jesus Christ. She's like she's like Yuna, resuming his plan. To free Lin, Kenshiro fights Kaio, but as the Hokuto seal remains unbroken within him, he is defeated. Shashi rescues Kenshiro with the aid of Akashashi's pirates, Daldo. Akashashi is killed by Kaio. Hio, the second Rasho, seeking to avenge Han's death, then searches for Kenshiro. Shashi reveals Hio is Kenshiro's older brother, and Kenshiro vows to defeat Hio. After a fierce battle, Hio's memories that had been locked away by Kaio are restored, and he reveals that the Hokuto seal can be broken at the Taizei temple. Upon arriving at the temple, Kenshiro finds Shashi dying in Leia's arms. Basically, the translator for this is Brazilian, so there might be some language difficulties. After having protected her from Kaio, Kenshiro then breaks the Hokuto seal and heads to confront Kaio in one final time. Before their battle begins, Kaio strikes Lin and sends her unconscious to roam the land alone on the back of his horse. However, she is rescued by Hio and Bat, along with the Hokuto army. But hey, at least someone bothered to translate this thing into English. What about you, American Fist of the North Star fans? Why didn't you do it? Yeah. Despite a brutal fight, Kenshiro emerges victorious, and thus his battle became legend.
See, here's the thing, Joe.
Sorry, I missed something. Can we see that again?
No.
Did you get that?
Good.
You're saying to
Here's
you?
the thing, Joe, that this is technically part of a series of games that were present, on the NES. But the second one, only that received a port on the Genesis Mega Drive for some reason, and that's the one that in the West
Chapter
arrived
1, a legend begins.
as Dust Battle.
So let me guess, it's one of those classic examples of, one of the later games got presented as the first game over in
And the
America.
only one. But again, since Last Battle is presented as an original tale, they kinda did it. So.
Alright, so let me explain two things. One, that's the thing, Dwebs. Now that I've actually properly played this game the way it was intended with a proper correct translation, I can explain to you exactly, Dwebs, why they bothered to sum up the entirety of the second season storyline right there. Because this is a terrible adaptation. Unless you read that crawl at the beginning, you will have no idea what the fuck is going on, because the game itself does such a terrible job explaining the characters. So I get the feeling the developers just realized that this and they decided, let's put in a call at the beginning. There you go, problem solved.
I'm guessing in regards to favor of a translation in that regard, since this was being presented as like the one soul game, I'm guessing part of the reason they changed up things so heavily in the translation was to make it more self-contained.
Not
I
really.
like the way of the head exploding and then their body.
Not really, Jova. Aside from the different names and the poor phrasing, the plot itself is relatively unchanged in Last
It's
Battle.
more a combination of things. One, licensing, and that was the primary thing, because back then, having a licensed game translated properly, that required also copyright stuff that, companies were not always, willing to do. Remember, even the NES Dragon Ball game got reconverted into its own original thing. Then there was what you said, the fact that this is the second game in a series, so it might, discourage people.
Alright, if I remember correctly...
Even more so
No,
that...
not yet. Okay.
Even more so that, the ones that, did not knew anything about the license.
So yeah, Jabba the Hutt's actual name is actually Gaira. There you go.
Gee, I'm seeing a
So
lot
this
of
is actually a
Star Wars
change.
analogies
So yeah,
in
the guy
names.
went out of his way to not just translate, but also improve the game whenever he could by even putting these names here. You might have noticed too how the layout of the levels is different. That's because there's two versions of this ROM hack. One that's just the translation and plus the names thingy. One where he swapped the placing of the levels to match the anime better, basically. So basically, what we're playing is a super duper optimized version of the game as possible, basically.
Okay, and another reason drove up, as you can imagine, as we discussed also in Last Battle, was, of course, the level of violence.
Yep.
Because M-rated games on... here's
he's not
His actual name is Boss. You might have also noticed that his health bar is much smaller too. That's because he also rebalanced the game to be a bit more for the difficulty curve to be better. Like it starts off easy and gets progressively harder, obviously. So basically, again, this is basically the definitive way of playing this game at this point.
Wow,
in case you're wondering,
Hulk Hogan was a lot more violent than I remember.
in case you're wondering, yes, the character even in the manga was specifically based around Hulk Hogan.
It's just, I'll admit, I kind of did like the charm of him being a literal Hulk Hogan since,
the Incredible Hulk Hogan, yeah. I mean,
honestly,
the Incredible Hulk Hogan thing, that's still one of the most memorable aspects of the localized version to me, because it's so cool. Go on, sorry.
Outside of Splatterhouse, what were the M-rated games on the Sega Genesis?
I'm pretty sure the first one... I'm pretty sure the first...
Night Trap?
Oh, go ahead, Dwips.
There's Bat.
I wanted Lynn to see you again.
Go ahead, too.
You've grown to be a man.
So there you go. That's what he's supposed to say instead of you have grown into a hero.
Wow, Pedro wasn't kidding. You definitely need that open crawl to get like anything.
Yeah, exactly. See, this is what I was talking about. Yeah. Now that I've actually, I've always given the original game, the original Japanese version, the benefit of the doubt because we haven't had a proper translation yet. Now that I've seen it for myself, I can tell you this is a really bad way of experiencing the original story. The game doesn't do a good job explaining anything, like at all. I get that I get that this was a much more innocent time in video games, but even still, though, like if you're adapting Fist of the North Side, at least adapt some of the charm into it. Go ahead, Joe.
You're back. You really came back.
Let's go, Lin, but...
And yeah, the colors have also been changed to reflect the anime better. Go ahead.
I feel stronger!
Oh, I prefer strength.
Strength is returned!
Yeah, strength is returned is funnier. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Give me a recap. How familiar were overseas countries with Fist of the North Star?
Around these toys specifically.
Europe was, America not so much.
I'm pretty sure that at least the manga had been translated around this point. The anime seasons, I don't think so. But yes, Europe was caught up more with this.
So in regards to the American release for this game, I think I can definitely see why the translation handled things the way they did. Like, not only was this technically not even the first game, but it had a ton of backstory from something that a lot of Americans may not have even seen. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that, you know, it was ideal what they ended up doing, but in their case, I can get why they would have portrayed it as its own little self-contained thing.
Honestly, Jova, I'm not even sure why they even bother, because as we analyzed, even Last Battle on its own, outside of, you know, nostalgic value, like in the case of Pedro, it's not that much of a fun game, and it feels even itself almost incomprehensible in its own madness because of what they had to do. Like, I'm not sure what was the thought process. They really thought they could sell the product like that. They probably shouldn't even bother.
I get that. I remember, Taylor, that was back in the early days of the Genesis, before Sonic 1 took over, right? So at the time, they were basically just throwing shit at the wall, hoping something stuck, basically.
And then eventually, when Sonic came, they had their big crowning IP.
Yeah, because remember, this game came out in 1989, Tail. It was a launch game even in Japan, I think, and it was 3 years before Sonic 1. So at the time, Sega didn't really have a heavy hitter, so they were just throwing shit at the wall, just waiting for something to stick, basically.
Although then my question is, why didn't they start with the original? Like, at least,
because the original was on the NES. This was the only title that got a Genesis port.
Yep. For whatever reason.
That they never thought to, you know, wait, okay, did they ever bring the original to NES over here at least?
The other games were not localized at all.
Nope. We recently got fan translations, but that's it.
You know what this would be like? This would be like if in modern terms, like, say, the first Ace Attorney game to come overseas is Ace Attorney 3. And then they give you like a giant recap for what happened in 1 and 2. But
came to see if we were dead.
Yes, you guys.
Beat will be here soon.
You mean Bat?
Join it. But sorry. My technique has improved.
Could you imagine if that was actually happened in shows? A guy tries to sound intimidating, but he flops his line, and he has to try and get his aura back.
Well, plenty of comedies do that.
Also, you gotta love it. He just comes to see them and says, "Oh, by the way, Bat will be here."
Yeah. Here's one thing you'll probably notice, Tail. Hold on. All right, Webbs, you're her as usual. Go ahead, Mamiya. Go ahead.
The Elder and so many other lives have been.
I thought.
I'll deliver death to the Tente.
Hey, I didn't even finish my sentence.
My strength is back.
Oh, mamma mia!
All right, you'll notice there that Mamiya is only present in that stage after completing the dungeon. Again, he reworked the entire game to try to make the events as chronologically accurate as possible. Go ahead.
What happened to this area?
Bat and I took it from Baron.
Good.
You see what I mean? If you don't know anything about the source material, you're not gonna know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, again, like, I'm starting to see the original translation as unnecessary evil at this point. Again, though,
like you said, Joe,
the localized version is just as incomprehensible. I mean,
and even so, again, Jova, there were also other factors that they were considering rather than the incomprehensibility, like again, the level of violence and the licensing.
Yeah, because if you play Last Battle, the plot is just as incomprehensible as well. So
okay. I guess to be fair, also to games of the old, story was
not a priority.
Focused, admittedly. So to be fair,
The Tente won't forgive the Hokuto.
The Hokuto shall not perish.
Let me finish my sentence.
That's the Pring, that's the Pring Dweebs. You are already dead.
Yeah, you're already dead, Whips.
Also, Jesus. Jesus.
Oh.
Sagat's younger years were pretty wild with that purple hair.
Omae wa mou shindeiru, Dweebs.
Chapter 2.
Golden ass.
This guy's such a rude dick. You'll let anyone finish their sentence.
Well, that's the thing, Dweebs. In the story, he tends to do that with the mooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, the mooks will be sputting out their mouth about how they're hot shit, and Kenshiro gets tired of hearing them, so he puts up these pressure points. Omae wa mou shindeiru, and they explode.
I think I mentioned it during the last time we did inside last battle, but I'm still a bit very rusty on the second season of the anime. Me and Pedro have been catching up a bit with the anime as a whole. And again, I can tell you it's still a good time despite everything.
Oh yeah, there is. I mean, the first arc is really good. I just think the ending needed a do-over a bit because.
And that's the thing, Pedro. In fact, I forget if I told you, but the way the anime was constructed was trying to tie things a bit together, because in the manga, Shin gets dealt with very early, relatively early.
Oh, really?
And a lot of the villains that we see tend to be standalone stuff that are sort of post-season, in between story arcs.
Oh, really?
So was it a case where the anime was changing some complications?
It was likely changing, trying to cannibalize It was changing to try to cannibalize a bit a couple of the standalone villains into working for the arc villain of the first arc, which again I find it understandable, especially because at the time it probably was a compromise that they could do.
The problem is that for us the villain is incredibly horrible of a person, like to the core, and yet the ending of the first arc still tries to make him somewhat sympathetic at the end, and it's just like, no, come on.
Let me guess. It turns out he lost his family.
No.
It's more of a case where Ken respects him as a fellow.
Joe, you can be Falco. Go ahead.
Why didn't you close in sooner? I'd be dead.
Your eyes. It's trying to say something.
Yeah, I'm bleeding out.
Again, it's just all these conversations that, without any knowledge of the source material, you have no context. And go ahead, Liz.
Hello.
Hello, little girl.
Papa would be happy if he kept his gloves.
Okay.
Ein, you should also live within my heart.
Remember, Ein. Remember, Ein is that guy we talked earlier. He died off screen. See, Joe, this is another thing that the localized version also got right, where Gear, as he's known in the localized version, also dies off screen. So the localized version. Yes, they changed the names, but the plot is still relatively unchanged, all things considered. It's still just the incomprehensibility is actually something that they kept, believe it or not.
Again, my best guess is like in changing the names and whatnot, they opted to make it at least feel more self-contained, as opposed to, oh, this is obviously like not the first venture in the journey. Like, that's my take on the situation.
That being said,
mind you, that does not change that, like you said, that story is still complete bonkers. But gosh darn if it wasn't fun bonkers.
This review we're doing right now also gives me an opportunity to mention something about the development of this game that I have yet to mention in this channel, because, yeah, I completely missed my opportunity, so this is my final chance to do so. Basically, Jova, this is a pre-Sonic 1 game made at Sega. And in fact, if you take a look at the few people that worked in this game, where we do have, because now thanks to the translation of the credits, we do have knowledge of who worked on this game. Some people who I couldn't really find who they are, except two people, Jova. The two people who worked on the art and sprites of this game, Jova. You might remember this guy. I don't know. You know, he's a bit obscure, but maybe you'll know who it is. Naoto Oshima. Yes, yes. Naoto Oshima was one of the artists of this game, and the other artist was Yasushi Yamaguchi, basically the guy who created Tails. basically.
I'm not so surprised because I think Johnny mentioned in his review that before handling Sonic, the guys were actually mostly responsible for Phantasy Star, so they've been doing a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. So basically, Jova, Naoto Oshima and Yasushi Yamaguchi, aka the creators of Sonic and Tails respectively, before Sonic, they were doing the art for this game. There you go.
Well, guess you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess to give it credit, the art is like the least of his game's issues.
Oh no! The art of this Japanese version does a good job representing the source material. The art is not the problem; it's everything else. Because the music, because again, I know I've said this before, but just to recap, the music is generic as fuck. The stage design is super basic and generic.
So, like, okay, objectively speaking, obviously this is a better translation, but in terms of personal preference, which do you prefer, this or the original translation?
I mean, because of my nostalgia for the original localized version, obviously that version is going to be the one that has the special place in my heart, like Teo said, right? And like I said, now that I've actually played the game in its most optimized form possible, and I've seen just how, you know what, even when you're playing this in the most optimized version, this is still a really bad adaptation that does not in any way incentivize people to go check out the source material. So
it was one of those, again, considering even the era, it was one of the usual suspects when it came to video games that are licensed from, from an anime series or something else that tend to not be very good, with only a few exceptions.
Basically, yeah.
What are you doing here?
Remember, that's Lynn's mom. Or, sorry, sister.
They look exactly the same, holy cow.
Sister, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Jova.
Why did Tiger take my little sister Lynn?
As long as I'm alive, Lynn will never die.
That doesn't answer my question.
Yeah.
My strength is back.
You see that? Notice that line that Kenshiro just said. As long as I am here, Lynn will never die. In the localized version, it's literally the same line. As long as I am here, Alyssa will not die. So yeah, some of the lines are actually in the localized Last Battle version are actually direct translations. So,
I guess.
So it was just with the actual license names, filed off.
Yeah.
Plus, of course, the character redesign.
There you go.
But yeah, an example like this reminds me of something like what happened with the first Desert Striker Gunvolt game, where when that game first got released, it had quite a quirky localization. Now, mind you, the localization for the most part got, the story right, but it did have, some interesting fake swears in place of stuff here and there, but sort of a kooky dialogue here. So later, when it got re-released, they added a mode where you could actually go for a more literal translation.
Yeah.
While that literal translation is, objectively the better one, it sadly feels boring compared to the localization, the original localization.
And also, one of the appealing things of the source material is, of course, the multiple different ways Kenshiro has of blowing up people, right? However, in this game, once again, does a poor job of conveying that because every enemy always explodes in the exact same way.
Even the finishing blow is basically scripted instead of actually you performing like a combo with your controller.
Yeah. So yes, it's cool that we finally get to see the enemies explode like in the source material. But as you can see, Chapter 3, the Evil Shura, the novelty wears off really fast.
The good news is that at the very least in the future we did got decent, Kenshiro games. The two Ken's Rage from Tecmo Koei, and more recently the one from Sega, the Yakuza team.
Also, maybe I'm misremembering, but isn't Kenshiro supposed to be faster than how this game portrays him?
Yes. Remember, Joe, but even though this is a Genesis game, it's an launch Genesis game, so it still has that NES mentality to its design, basically.
I guess, but even Mario, one of the literal grand...
Take me to the land of Asura.
Alright, I'll be Akashashi. You're about to travel through hell.
I mean, technically this is like anime Mad Max, so aren't we already in hell?
Oh yeah? Well, my technique has improved, so...
Fuck you!
But yeah, no, I mean, like, well, even I get that this was before Sonic, but even still, like, we had games as quick-paced as the Mario Brothers games. Like, I don't know, shouldn't he be able to move faster?
I get the feeling the developers of this game were newbies, like they had just started, and this was like something they tried to make something super basic.
Perhaps, yeah.
They probably, I do wonder if they wanted to capture the feeling of Ken being potentially unstoppable despite people throwing everything to him left and right. The problem is that they did not bother to compensate with the actual resistance because under normal circumstances, being a Genesis game all the time, you get pummeled very easily.
Yep.
Yeah, like, I mean, the cheats Pedro's using definitely do make Kenshiro look awesome, but something tells me that on a regular playthrough, you would be seeing a few game overs.
I actually can complete this game well without cheats. I'm just doing it for the purpose of making this playthrough not go on over an hour. Oh, and here's Falco. Go ahead, Jova.
I couldn't rescue Lynn. Forgive me.
All right.
It's because
Hold
you
on.
left
Go ahead,
me
Theo.
bloody.
Don't worry, I'll rescue Lynn for sure.
Oh, there you go. See, now that's something that is something that the localization screwed up. Go ahead, too.
I feel stronger.
That's very nice, Kenshiro. That's very nice.
Falco is missing a leg.
Yeah, and his name is Alf. There you go. Finally, I know who this guy is.
Matador.
Good job. Does Alf even have any lines?
Alf? No. This guy, like, there's another example of how poorly represented the source material is. Like, this character doesn't even get a fucking name in-game. The only reason we know his name is because the translator of this hack was nice enough to put the name here.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Even in the original?
No, in the original, he's just a random guy with zero context. I mean, Theo complained about how the Hulk comic book villains in the Hulk 2003 game are given little to no context. This makes Hulk 2003 seem masterful by comparison. Like, you'll notice what Kenshiro just said to Falco after he said he failed to rescue him. Don't worry, I'll rescue him for sure. For those who forgot, in the localized Genesis version that Sega of America made, he says Duke. Remember, that's his that's the fanfic he named they came up with for Falco, right? Duke, what a hero you are. So they made it seem like Arzak was scolding him. You failed to rescue Lynn. What a fucking loser. Like, wow. So that's actually something that the localization completely screwed up, as you guys just saw. It's weird because some of the lines are like exact translations, others just make random changes that make no sense.
So what's with these jumping T-800s?
I don't know.
It's supposed to represent, you know, a bit of a non-martial arts, but something close to that. The way the books moved, even in the anime, was actually something similar to that, bouncing a bit around with the guard stance.
Alright, I'll be this one. Shashi has Lin. He is going to the Rasho Han.
Wait for him, so you don't forget how to love.
Damn, yes, wait for him, so you don't forget how to love.
And I did not forget to strengthen, having back my strength.
People can love without a significant other, you know.
If you don't see your lover, you'll forget how to love.
That's actually part of the classic opening in terms of lyrics. The idea that Ken actually brings back hope and love to these desolate lands.
See, the thing is, okay, to recap what was I saying, see, okay, for the end, when Shin, the first villain of the anime, dies, okay, basically, Joe, but the backstory is that Shin and Kenshiro used to be best friends, but then one day, Shin looked at Kenshiro's growth and he thought, huh, I want that.
I want to tap that.
So he decided to go complete evil. I'm not kidding you, complete evil. Even as far as destroying the grave of his master. Right?
Over a girl?
Over a girl, yes.
Neji will love that the entire incipit for the series is a cock arc.
A giant incel cuck arc.
No, Pedro is not even joking. Every time we cut back to Shin in the present, he's doing the same exact incel routine. Oh, why is she not loving me? I give everything to her, but she doesn't love me.
I treat you as a princess and you betray me.
And they try to make him sympathetic in the end.
Yeah, basically the idea at the end is that they have Kenshiro kills Shin, but then when he buries him, he's like, you know what, we used to be friends, but you know what? So they try to make it seem like, you know what, you may have been a gigantic piece of shit, but you were my friend once, so you know what, I feel sorry for you. And they play the sweet music and everything. It's like, no, it's way too late to try to potentially redeem Shin. He has done way too much crap at this point.
Did Shin even have redeeming qualities before he became
No, that's the thing.
evil?
What the story is basically doing is that Ken supposedly forgives him for their past friendship and the fact that, you know, they've been following warriors, and the idea behind is that, you know, it's not with resentment and hate that you actually move forward, but instead with, you know, peace of mind and calmness and stuff like that. The problem is that, like Pedro said, Shin has done way too many horrible things to Ken and to the other people around him, including killing. Okay, we didn't mention that, but there's also the way a couple of female characters are treated during the series. For example, in a couple of episodes before the final confrontation with Shin, we just get to know one, and then immediately she sacrifices herself so that Ken and the others can reach the stronghold of Shin. It happens very fast. So combine everything, it feels, you know, a bit unearned at the very least.
Are there any versions of Shin that are handled better in adaptation?
Not that I know of.
Okay, if I recall correctly, the entire incipit of the Sega games, the Sega game, the one done by the Yakuza team, is that it's an alternate scenario in which Shin still dies, but something changes slightly so that, you know, it justifies the game's plot, you know. And if I recall correctly, one of the things that happens is that Shin is slightly less asshole edition, I think, but I don't remember the details.
See, the thing is,
I will say, Shin sounds like one of those nice guys.
let me put it this way, Jova.
No, Jova, he doesn't even try like that. It's just that the entire thing about Shin is that, despite, like Pedro said, he's been training under the same martial artist as Ken, but he learned a different, you know, current philosophy of martial arts, which essentially supposedly goes in symbiosis, but also completely against the actual Fist of the North Star that Ken is doing. So the idea also about the story is that these two are polar opposite, and fighting against each other should not be really a thing. And the idea is that the martial arts style that she studied is much more aggressive and more leading into assassination, while the one that, you know, Ken studied is about self-defense and protection and healing. So again, it's a classic light and dark side properties of the Force in Star Wars when you get down to it.
Which is funny, because if you're going off of Fist of the North Star for only the most basic of context, as far as you know, Kenshiro's a cold-blooded killer with how he blows up people.
Well, but that's the thing, the people he blows up are all evil, though.
Yeah, every episode contextualizes so that he has to do it as a last sort of defense. Believe it or not, Juma, because again, usually clips don't contextualize too much, not to a fault, but it's just a thing that happens. Almost every time he tries to reason with the people, even in the most basic levels, and and basically say, please turn back because otherwise you will die. And they die only because they don't listen to
him. And Freddie Mercury's real name is Han.
Yes, he really does look like Freddie Mercury. Like, yeah, it's
the proportion. Look at the head is smaller than his face.
Yeah.
Did Rob Liefeld help out?
I was about to say.
Or maybe the artist who drew the Warrior comics. Okay. I've lost, but you won't be able to defeat Hayo.
Who the hell is this Hayo?
That's all I'm
I don't know, you tell me.
Well, whatever, my technique has improved, so
also,
positive.
One of the few enemies that we actually leave alive.
No, I'm pretty sure Kenshiro kills him.
He probably just stepped on him off screen.
Chapter 4, Inevitable Fate. That's an incredibly generic chapter name, but...
I love that digitized scream that they replicated.
Yeah. Is it like taken from the anime?
I think so. Even so, the voice actor of Kenshiro was, you know, still active at that point, so they could have easily just asked him to record specifically that screen that to be digitized.
Also, we're now fighting Cyborg Moleman by the looks of it.
Yes.
And again with the jumping auto.
As a general thought, Drova, because I still need to catch up, like he said, but the second season of the anime, which is this is based on, is regarded as, you know, much weaker compared to the first, especially because the villain that is sure not appearing in this title, Rao, is considered basically the highlight of the entire franchise.
Wait. They did this based off of the second season, but didn't include the main baddie?
No, because the main baddie was of the one of the first season.
Yeah, but it was defeated at the end of season 1. Because remember, this is supposed to be a sequel to that NES game that
she was the one only of the first
mentioned.
arc, then more people arrived.
Yeah. I get that. It's just, I thought I heard you say that, like, well, essentially the villain of the second season served not appearing in
No. That's the, like, again, it's the guy that was mentioning the text scroll, Rao. It's a bit long to explain, but again, he became basically the breakout villain just because he was written really that good.
That's why I said. That's why I'm still convinced that that's the main reason why we had that opening crawl at the beginning. The developers realized that the plot was incomprehensible, so they put that giant crawl at the beginning just so that people have a basic idea of what's going on.
Honestly, couldn't they just pasted a bit, as in a bit of text scroll in between areas?
Yeah, they could have done that, but they didn't.
So if I understand correctly, Fist of the North Star is one of those things where, even though the series overall is good, it's widely agreed that the first season was like the big peak.
Yes. The second season is not as talked about as much. I guess I'll figure out for myself when I get to it. But
there's now even a stage musical of it. That
they did everything with this franchise when you get down to it, Jova. So yes, it was even. I don't think it was American made, but there was actually a live-action movie in the middle of the 90s. The actor who played Brian Fury in the Tekken live-action movies was in that one too, as we noticed.
According to Wikipedia, it actually was American produced. Was it good?
I don't. It's been a long time since I saw it, so I don't remember.
Yeah, same. And yes, obviously I don't know anything about the reception from the Japanese critics at the time. I'm sure Famitsu was a fan that would have given this game a 40 out of 40, but as usual. But Famitsu wasn't a thing at the time. So
I have to wonder, is there like a list of the few games that Famitsu has not reviewed positively?
Well, let me check even on the basic. What's the lowest score that Famitsu gave?
Okay. As for the Western reception to Last Battle, though, Last Battle received mixed to poor reviews from critics, with criticism towards its stiff controls, poor dialogue, and no continues. There are continues, it's just that you have to know a code to use them, which is stupid. Megatech magazine said it was a quote-unquote failure on 2 counts. It neither shows off any of the Mega Drive's capabilities, nor is an enjoyable game on its own right. Mega, which is another magazine, placed the game at number 2 on their list of the 10 worst Mega Drive games of all time, which is a bit extreme. I can think of way worse games on the Genesis than this one. I mean, don't get me wrong, this game is not good. It's super, but at the end of the day, it's still functional. Though I can look at Bubsy. Both Bubsy games are worse than this. If you ask me.
Shaq Fu.
Yeah, Shaq Fu. But Shaq Fu is technically a worse game than this.
I mean, I will say Shaq Fu is technically a worse game, though. I think I could argue it's arguably a more entertaining game.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
My best guess as to why this maybe got as ravaged as it did in the reviews is like. Combine, how overwhelming the enemies can be.
Okay,
with the fact that
unless you break the Hokuto seal, you can't win, Kenshiro.
The Hokuto seal.
So there you go. So there you go. That's what the quote-unquote secret seal from Last Battle is. The Hokuto seal.
Also, I found it, Jova. Apparently, a 3DS game made in 2017 called Galaxy Blaster managed to receive a 4.3 for free score for a total of 14 out of 40.
Wow!
That has to be, again, for Famitsu to give it, that has to be really hot garbage.
Just how bad is that game then?
Like seriously, I didn't think it was possible for them to do anything below a 20.
Alright, Jova.
You must fight. Wait, you must not fight, Hio. He's your brother.
What? Then I must defeat him with my fist.
Isn't your fist like
Okay.
My strength is back.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it is in the anime if the animation really goes like that.
I see.
And there it is. There's Hio.
Well, of course he's his brother. They both have red hair. Although his brother looks like he's cosplaying as Lionel.
Like I love that. You must not fight him. He's your brother. My brother? Then I will defeat him with my fist.
If I understand correctly, it goes something more like you must not kill him because he's your brother. It's like I will use my fist just to knock him out.
So let me guess. His brother is mind controlled.
Well, that's the thing, though. Isn't this guy's main thing his fist?
Yeah.
Does his fist kill people?
Well, that's the thing, Leaves. The main thing about it are pressure points. Yes, the
Don't
fist
worry,
are...
don't worry, I'm not gonna kill him. I'm just gonna hit him with my lethal fist.
Hold on, I think...
Yeah. Alright. I remember. The Taisei Temple has the key.
What?
I guess that snapped him out of it.
Brother.
And that's it. That's the happy brotherly reunion.
Brilliant.
Wonderful.
That's the thing with, again, the fists are a thing, but the key are using the pressure points. Ken actually is skilled enough that he can, decide to pressure, different pressure points to cause different effects. Some of them are being non-lethal, One of my favorites is something that Pedro hasn't seen yet, but it's kind of amazing to see in action, that forces a person to walk backwards.
Yeah.
Until they get tired and die. And the best thing about it is that his kill away line to him is that keep going and maybe one day you will reach hell.
Wait. Was X-Men Origins Wolverine actually referencing that when Silver Fox?
No, because Silver Fox forced him to go forward. What I mean, like he said, walking backward.
Oh, I get that, but maybe that was like a cheeky reference, instead of backwards, it's forwards, but basically walk
Probably
into
not.
the
Alright, to answer Jova's question, the story of the brother, Jova, is that he lost his memory and as a result,
he was working for the bad guy.
Yeah, the bad guys tricked them into becoming evil, basically. What I love is the way Last Battle phrases it, the way they phrase it. Remember, Hio's name in the Last Battle is Gross, and they say a long time ago Gross lost his memory and turned to a life of violence. That's what I've always loved, that particular phrasing. I don't know who I am. Well, I guess I'll turn to a life of violence. I mean, what else can I do?
Goodness gracious! It's not like I could, try and get help on this. I gotta be a criminal now.
It's the opposite of what Shadow does in the beginning of Shadow Edge, or like Roger parodied very well in his parody. My past, I must find out my past. But instead of going around and asking people about it, I'll just sit here, brooding.
Admittedly,
they are under attack.
No, but this is before the Black Aliens.
The intro cinematic showcases him just angsting on a random field before the alien
attack. That's why Roger makes that joke, I must find out my past. This is before the Black Aliens attack. But instead of going around interrogating and asking people about it, I'll just stay here, brooding, and not wait for the Tooth Fairy to come and tell me.
Okay. Now, to that game's credit, a lot of people argue, well, why doesn't Rouge tell Shadow anything, even though she knew stuff? Having replayed Adventure 2, I do kind of get that. At best, what Rouge could have told him was basically what happened during Adventure 2, since technically no one else ever found out exactly who Maria was, well, save for that journal bit from Gerald, essentially, but it's not like they knew all the deets for Shadow in that regard, so technically they didn't know the super duper truth. And let's be honest, who could have seen it coming that Shadow is actually the half-son of a warlord from outer space?
But to go back to this, yeah, that's the basic gist of it. The brother lost his memory and blah blah blah. That's again, it's one of those things where, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that interaction earlier with the "you must not defeat him, he's your brother" thing goes in the anime, because yeah, but I can imagine it's probably the way Teo said, obviously, because the way it's phrased because the way it's phrased in this game doesn't make Kenshiro look good.
I'm curious, do critics have anything to say in regards to how the story is in this game? Again, I know that story was not, you know, the pinnacle of priority back then, but I do have to wonder if the way the story is portrayed may have played some part in them hating this.
No, from what I'm seeing, I can't find, like you yourself said, Joe, back then, how good the writing was in a video game, even critics didn't seem to particularly care.
Yeah. It's one of those cases where it still unfortunately contributes to its problems, but I absolutely get why they may not have tried as hard as they could have back then.
That's why Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid 1 were as important as they were, because those were games that seriously awoke mainstream gaming audiences to more story-heavy games, where showing that the writing should matter, right? Whereas games prior to that, don't get me wrong, obviously there were games with good stories before those two games, obviously, but those two games exploding on the PS1 the way they did, those were the games that really, awoke people to that.
I mean, that was just a presentation, because by that logic, I argue Final Fantasy VI already on the Super Nintendo was already strong enough for a contender.
Well, but here's the thing, Teo, remember, no, I'm not talking about how good the stories are. Like, Final Fantasy VI is fantastic, of course, but it only released in America and Japan, so obviously couldn't have a worldwide impact as a result of it, right? Final Fantasy VII, on the other hand, because of Sony's aggressive marketing at the time, and because of how it reached so much more people, it had that gigantic impact. Obviously, 6 probably could have had that impact if it was properly marketed, but...
Remember, this is the secret of the...
Strike the Shioran pressure point.
Why did it start off as a statue?
The Hokuto seal is finally broken.
You haven't even done anything yet.
Shut up, I feel stronger.
Is there any reason why the seal started off as a statue?
So, hold on. That's an interesting thing. So
you didn't break it. Hang on.
So that's the interesting. No. Apparently, he's just told by the thing what he has to do, and he says strike the Shioran pressure point. So that's interesting, considering I haven't seen up until the season 2 yet.
Okay,
so Kenshiro has to be told which pressure point to hit.
Which specific one would be the weakness, and if I recall correctly, it did work as a sort of a force field for him. But again, it's been a long time. I don't remember.
And the thing, Terry, you'll notice that he also changed it so that instead of doing the whole 2 life bars thing, he just has him change to phase 2 in the middle of this, like so. See, yeah, that's better.
And now he's the Red Hulk.
Yeah.
His name is Kaio.
Is he supposed to be Satan and he's dragging us to hell going?
No, he's just very bold, King.
The heaven has chosen you. It has?
Thanks.
Farewell.
Jazz hands.
Farewell, Kenshiro.
Thanks for playing. He doesn't seem mad or.
Thank you so much for playing my game.
Oh, and he blows himself up in fire. I love the happy music playing as he is, a burning, boiling corpse. Holy cow.
Alright, so now let's see if the narration is better.
So he rides off into the sunset, the Lone Ranger.
Basically.
He's destroyed in the background.
Well, remember, it was a Mad Max style setting.
Post-apocalyptic Earth.
Remember, Mad Max was one of the primary inspirations for Fist of the North Star. That's what Fist of the Star is, Dwebs. It's anime Mad Max. That's basically what it is.
Well, very recently, the mangaka actually created a fan art of Furiosa to give
But
to George Miller.
you are the only one who can answer Lynn's love.
Wait, is Kenshiro supposed to be saying this?
Yes.
Whatever, it's still the narration.
So, guess what? The director, the Hayes, that guy worked on Sonic Chaos, in case you forgot.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, notice you're gonna see him in the credits, Jova. Hold on. Pay attention to the credits. Art director, Big Island. If you might remember, Jova, that's how Naoto Oshima is credited in Sonic 1. Big Island.
Cute.
And Judy Totoya, that's the Yazaguchi pseudonym. Designers Gotani and Toyo Ozaki. So there you go. We finally have credits in this fucking thing. Music by Booty. Remember, this is a time where Sega developers had, and yeah, the patch was done by Hernani S. Costa.
I mean, Pedro, remember, we know a guy whose real last name is actual Booty.
True. That is true.
Truth is stranger than friction.
I guess so, yes. But we all know these are pseudonyms, because remember, like, Instahold Noah Toshima is Big Island, and Yuji Naka is YU2, right?
I wonder why they went with pseudonyms at this stage.
It was, I think...
YU2, is that what he...
I'm guessing...
YU2, is that what he said to those who he thinks betrayed him?
I don't know. And there's the North Star, I guess. Farewell, rivals. Farewell, rivals.
It was a common thing at the time. If I recall correctly, even Yoko Shimomura did it in their early years.
I get that, but farewell, rivals?
Well, you see, this will be the last game you ever get in America for the Genesis. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I know, but I'm asking, like, farewell, rivals? Okay. So that was the legend of the end of the century savior, or Fist of the North Star, or like the... In fact, let me get the actual title. The actual title is Shin Seikimatsu Kyūseishu Densetsu Hokuto no Ken, which translates to Fist of the North Star, the new legend of the post-apocalyptic messiah.
Close enough.
So there you go. I have finally closed this 25 plus year chapter. In fact, actually more than that. Yeah, 30. I have now closed this 30 plus chapter of my life. I have now finally played this game with the actual proper correct translation. And guess what? And guess what? It still sucks.
And then the companies behind it eventually announced a whole Fist of the North Star collection, finally translating all the games, including this one officially.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no.
Same. But here's the thing. Okay. That's the basic gist of it. Like, we are officially done with this game. I am no longer going to... So, congrats, audience. I am no longer going to have any excuses to torture you any further with this game. So, that's it. Dwebs, we all already know what our final thoughts are, but this is a formality, so go ahead.
How was that? I mean, that giant wall of text it's way too much for me to absorb, and I'm pretty sure it's not an E thing, because cramming a bunch of exposition into a giant wall of text, and yeah, because that worked out so well for the Alone in the Dark movie.
Oh no!
It technically worked out for Metal Gear Solid 1.
Well, wait. When does? Oh, you're talking about the recap.
The recap.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
To be fair, okay. To be fair, Metal Gear Solid 1 is still comprehensible without reading the text recaps of Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2. They're there for the sake of giving newcomers some way to catch up, but they're not essential. This crawl, on the other hand, this is essential. If you don't read that crawl, you're not gonna know what the fuck is going on if you don't know anything about the source material. Dwebs.
I mean, and not to mention the gameplay itself looks really bland.
Yeah.
And rather dull. The graphics aren't not anything special, and the music, it's there. Yeah, but that's to say, I've heard and seen much better Mega Drive games.
Oh yeah, obviously.
That's it.
All right, Jova.
What the hell did I just look at?
A poor adaptation of Fist of the North Star Season 2.
Okay, all joking aside, yeah, this game's kind of bad. Like, it's not the worst thing ever, but the thing is, the most enjoyment I get out of it is the hokey dialogue. Like, gameplay-wise, it seems sluggish, it seems overwhelming with enemies and projectiles here and there. It's a mess. And again, it's just hilarious that that, originally when this was brought overseas, they essentially were trying to sell people on what was the second game in a series of games that was technically more based off of the second season of an anime that wasn't even really that well known at the time. Like, and I get why they brought it to America, because America was and still is one of the biggest video gaming countries and all that, but I don't know. Couldn't they have maybe put in the effort to at least port the original game, translated and all that? I mean, granted. Okay, let's give us the benefit of a doubt and say, the first game is around here and there. Would this game have done well even with that game coming before it? I honestly can't give it the benefit of a doubt in that regard. That being said, it is funny to read. That's pretty much all I can recommend. Give this like a watch. If you're really super duper curious, then sure, give it a play on an emulator.
The primary appeal of this game in today's day and age is the fact that it's an interesting point of history in the Hokuto no Ken franchise / Fist of the North Star. Aside from that, there's not really... If it wasn't for being attached to Fist of the North Star, probably even less people would even know about this game's existence.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, now that Fist of the North Star is definitely more of a household name over here, that is easily this game's saving grace in terms of, not being lost to time.
Yeah.
Next.
2.
Again, there's not much more that I can add to what I already said, either in the last battle commentary or, during this. It's your average, licensed game done around this time. Very clunky, very, unforgiving. The story heavy only at the very beginning, but paced horribly because of that. Unless you really are, into the product this is licensed upon, you're probably not going to enjoy much of it. And even so, you might as well just stick it to the source material. I'm not sure, how much real enjoyment you can get. Again, it's one of those cases where when the game originally arrived in the West, there wasn't that much that it could do because of a combination of different factors, not just the way this was presented, but again, there was not much they could do. So it's kind of understandable. But otherwise, this is just what it is. Basically, a relic of its time. Better things came out, as Hokuto no Ken games. So at least you can take solace in that. Pedro.
No, there's not really much more I can add. This game still sucks and will continue to suck. My fascination with it is purely Stockholm Syndrome. That's all it is. Because, like I said, when I first got my Mega Drive, it came with 4 games: Sonic 1, Yu Suzuki's Super Hang-On, World Cup Italia 90, the official game of the 1990 World Cup in Italy, and this game. I can definitely tell that Sega was having trouble selling this game because they started packaging this thing with the fucking console. And I can see why, because, it was always the black sheep of those 4 games that came with my Mega Drive.
I'm sure it tried its best for you.
Yeah, but right next to it in the box was Sonic 1, Jova, so did it even have a chance to begin with?
No, it did not. That's like literally putting the prize-winning sibling next to, I want to be fair and say, the newborn, since that would imply pretty much put into perspective.
Well, not just Sonic 1, we also had Super Hang-On, which is a Yu Suzuki classic, right? So, the basic point is this game is exactly what it is. A basic fighter that they attached a popular property onto. And like I said, now that we've properly seen the game as it was originally made, and the translator even went out of his way to rearrange the game to make the chronology of the places and the bosses and the characters you talk to be as close to the anime as possible. So this is like the most optimized version of this game we can possibly get, both gameplay wise and translation wise, and yet it still doesn't even come close to improving it even a bit, because like I said, the plot is terribly adapted. It's impossible to understand anything what these people are talking about without any context. Again, I'm still convinced that the developers realize this, which is why they put that crawl there. Because why else would you put that crawl in there if it isn't because, you know, you need to explain this shit somewhere? You know, I'm surprised they didn't just leave it for the manual, because the manual, at least the Western manual does. That crawl is also written in the Western manual of the game. I don't know if the Japanese manual has it. Probably does. It probably does. I'm pretty sure it does. So you'd think they would just let that shit into the manual, because a lot of games left the story just for the manual, but this game went out of its way to put all of the manual shit into the game itself. So I guess it was kind of ahead of its time regarding that, of trying to make it so that you don't need to read the manual to understand the game technically. But at the same time, like Theo said, you could have very easily put in parts of that crawl throughout the game. You know, like you could have, like any parts of the story that are not shown on screen, you could have used parts of that crawl to explain shit. But no, they instead decided to dump all that exposition right at the beginning, and by the time the title screen comes up, the player is already exhausted from reading so much. You know. And guess what, Webs? What you just saw here, this is the succinct version of the crawl. Because when the guy made the original version of this hack, because this is the more recent version of the hack, the crawl was even bigger. Because what you saw here, this is like the succinct, summarized version. Because the literal translation, because he originally went out of his way to basically make the crawl even bigger, so he could put in all the details of the plot there. The problem is, it did more harm than good, because, you know, like, people just want to get on with this, you know. But that's basically it. That's it, everybody. That's this game. We are never going to do this game ever again. We have officially run out of reasons to do so. So don't worry, we're done. We're done here, everybody. Let's all go home. See ya.
Lay it to rest.
Strength has returned.
Indeed.